taking a bit to land. And if you can't hear me, just let me know in the chat. Welcome. This is Elaine with Seer and Higher Self. I'm just going to put a description in the chat. You can ask a higher self question. So I'm connecting with your higher self through source consciousness, through the heart. And it's always best if you're asking questions that are from your perspective. And you can also ask questions if you've been doing the decree or anything. It's just YouTube's taking a little while right now. I'm not sure if I'm just going to wait to put the description in. All right. Good morning, Helen. This is Helen's in the chat already. So good morning. I'm going to send everybody some hearts. Got a few people here. Let me just take a look. Oops. Let's see. Oh. Let's see, I'm just going to see if I can put the description in. Let's take a look. It seems like it's kind of delayed right now for me on my end. Okay. I think I have to wait on that. Okay. All right. So I think I'm just going to leave the chat for right now because it's taking too long. It's taking too long. The one thing that came through, and I see there's already some questions. So the one thing that has been coming through really clearly is how much 3D Earth is the inversion. So everything in 3D is inverted. So an example is for how we take care of children. So in 3D, even though attachment research started with John Bowlby in like 1900s, is so strong, responsive parenting, the dominant was like Dr. Spock, that was it, and it was like, don't let your children attach because then they're going to become really needy. So we need to like push them away and then send them to boarding school. And Dr. Bowlby said, he was an English psychiatrist that first started the research into attachment parenting. And he said he wouldn't send his dog to boarding school. And so if you love boarding school, then this isn't for you, okay? But this is for light workers, so sensitives, star seeds, black sheep, anybody that sees themselves as asking more questions and wondering kind of like the big questions, why am I here? What is going on? And the way children are treated in 3D Earth and the way that we've been treated as light workers usually is horrific. And so there's so much to heal and there's so much to awaken from in the 3D, but 3D in itself is created in an inversion. And so this came up recently in a session, and we were shown really clearly that in 5D and beyond, that children actually are so precious and there's an abundance of patience and there's always support, and the parents are guardians forever of the child. So this hierarchy of this domination is false. It is false, like the 3D inversion of the material plane. So yeah, just right away I feel heated inside, because it's essentially the trauma happens so little. And then if we have then traumas from other time spaces, it usually is created like an amplification. So it's like in one timeline, a trauma will happen to a light worker, because they don't want us to awaken in 3D Earth. Because if one of us awakens in 3D Earth, then we awaken 750,000 souls. Just one. If one person embodies and stabilizes in 5D, we awaken and affect 750,000 others. And so they put so much pressure on us so that we don't awaken, and their main modality is fear and guilt. So but they're controllers. So they're called the architects, they're called the controllers. They don't really like being called the controllers, but their whole thing is to control and to dominate and to do it as young as possible, to create that fear. But the way that we awaken is, if we didn't have any connection with source consciousness without even being taught, we know in our hearts, even when we're little, like, hey, you're a liar, stop lying. You see that with young light workers all the time, don't do that, you're breaking the rules, right? And then they get in trouble. So we have this inherent consciousness. And then the world around us, depending on the environment that we are brought into, puts the pressure so that we question ourselves and question our connection to our hearts and question our connection to God, source, divine presence. And then we question and we feel crazy. And then they say, you are crazy, because we're questioning, right? So the way the 3D material plane, they need us. We do not need them. We are a self-sustaining, source emanated heart beings. And we receive energy from source just doing nothing. You can sit here and just do nothing, and you're connecting with your heart, and then you're receiving information, you're receiving healing, you're receiving, self-actualization from source, and you're not doing anything. You're just sitting. No one's teaching you. No one's telling you what to do. Your awakening comes from within. All we can do is peer-to-peer, help each other, mirror each other, and hold the frequency together. But there's no teachers in 5D. There's no gurus in 5D. There's no spiritual teachers in 5D. Right? Our connection to God, source, divine presence is the frequency embodied in a body, in a 3D body, in a 5D frequency, which is source consciousness. It's a heart-based frequency. And so there are no archons in 5D. There's no reptilians in 5D. There's no Draco reptilians in 5D. There's no grays in 5D. They can't go beyond 4D. And so as soon as you have an awakening and consciousness, and it starts getting, you ask more and more questions, and you're connecting the dots, and you're awakening more and more, and then the pressure gets worse. And then it's so confusing, because you think, wait a minute, no, I awakened. And then how come I'm feeling worse? How come my money is worse? How come my car gets towed? How come I'm having, everything I touch breaks? And how come, all my electrical appliances break? And how come, because everything starts falling apart. And so you think you're doing something wrong. But it's because they're putting more pressure on you, because as soon as you embody 5D, they have zero access to you, zero access to you. Zero. And so I've just done it myself in the last 2 years, is stabilizing in 5D. So I know their tricks. I'm not scared. I sleep at night. I'm not scared at all. I'm not ever scared. And anytime I'm going somewhere, and if I get kind of daydreamy and I end up going in another path, it's always it happened yesterday. And I ended up in this gorgeous it's just surrounded by trees. And I was in this like intense traffic, and all of a sudden I heard like go right, and I went right, and I was like, oh no, what am I doing? Like I'm gonna be so like late or off track. But it took 15 minutes and it was gorgeous, gorgeous. So, I'm not scared of any of them. I I know their tricks, and they're like cheap shots. They're not creative. They are made. They are so far away from source. The Greys are made, the reptilians are made, but the Anunnaki originated from source, and they have fallen way, way, way far to 1%. So that's like nothing. Say if source is 1,000%, they're like 1%. They're like so far from source, they don't even know who they are, They're so they're so far away. And so all they can do are all these cheap shots of, they control the material world. So they try to mess with your money or your home or how much things cost, or, things breaking down. So you have to replace them, like I had in 6 months, I had a brand new dishwasher. The repair guy came, it was only 6 months old, and he looked at it and he said, what happened? It was like the dishwasher curled up, like everything got mangled, and it was brand new. It was only 6 months old. And then I said, I don't know, nothing. Like it was working yesterday, and then this morning, this is this mangled brand new dishwasher, you know. So I was thinking, okay, well, is that like alchemy? Is that transformation? And then so he just said, well, there's nothing to do. It's under warranty. We just have to give you a new one. So they try to mess stuff up, but really it benefited me. I had it's a kind of a waste because it was a new machine, but you know, everything that they did, it seemed like it was going to harm me or it's going to hassle me, but the repair people came, they were great. The other thing was the dryer. The dryer stopped working then, pretty quickly after. And then I called a repair person, and the repair person said, well, actually, the dryer is in good condition. It's the electrical panel. And the whole electrical panel had like short circuited. And then this amazing woman, electrician, came, and she like fixed it for nothing. She just came and she just said, wow, this is like the most interesting thing I've ever seen. And then she fixed it, and then the dryer worked, and then the electrical panel worked, but the repair people that came were amazing. So, I mean, it was there to hassle me. It was there to frighten me. It was there to irritate me. Like, why are things breaking down? Is it a sign that it's going badly? I was like, I don't care. Whatever sign, I'm meeting it and I'm still going forward. Like, it's consciousness or bust. It's source mirroring source or nothing. It's consciousness mirroring consciousness or nothing. Like that is how determined I was. And so, so many things, I will do a separate video because so many things shifted in that year of like things that what I describe as the 4D, they're trying to frighten so that and it works, it worked with me in 2000. And I see it with clients. It works, but you have to just ignore them and focus on source, consciousness, divine presence, God. You have to just keep going back into your heart and trust your heart more than anything. And you literally have to ignore them and just be like, okay, that broke down. I got to get it fixed, or I don't get it fixed, but I'm making a decision. I'm getting fixed. And then get it fixed. but don't dwell on it. Just be like, okay, my car got towed. That's weird. I would never have done that. I would have never parked in a spot that would my car would get towed. Okay, weird event. Okay, get my car and then move on. And then just keep coming back to your heart. Keep coming back to consciousness. And don't let them interfere with you. Claim your space in source's name. Claim the corners of your room in source's name. Create a frequency, 5D frequency they cannot exist in at all. At all. And they're trying, and I feel actually like they're like jealous. You know how the dark triad, the psychopath, sociopath, narcissist are extremely controlling and extremely jealous. They're jealous of you. They're jealous of the room. They're jealous of everybody. Everybody, if anybody's better looking than them, if anyone has more money than them, if anybody is more athletic than them, they're constantly in comparison and jealous. They're agitated all the time. They're constantly agitated. And this is their realm. This is 3D. They own 3D. And this is their realm, and they are crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Nuts. They're so agitated. Anywhere they go, they want to, how do I look? How are people perceiving me? It's like, who cares? Like, I don't know. Go ask the room. How am I being perceived? That is what they think about 24/7. How do I look? How are people perceiving me? Who cares? But that is what they are obsessed with. Image. So when you're a heart-based being and you're like looking in and you're like, okay, well, look in. And then they look in and they're like, there's nothing, because there's nothing. They're empty. So they need you, right? But you don't need them. And the faster you get away from them, the better. I'm not telling anybody what to do, but just based on experience, it's a waste of time. You cannot rehabilitate them. You cannot awaken them. That is not their frequency. Their frequency is there to pull you into 3D and to stay in 3D so that they can siphon your energy. That's their job. That is their goal. So stay away from them. It's kind of the fast track. And then if you have to interact with them, then the awakening of who is around you. And I spent decades. It's a waste, just such a waste. It doesn't work. And I was told two geese, and geese, they're in pairs, divine feminine and divine feminine, and they mate for life and they travel together. And two just went right across from the window just now. So confirmation. So they are a union, a divine union. I just called them a divine union. To me, they're a divine union because they're mirroring source consciousness. So, okay. I'm like all heated up. I'm like, okay, is the transmission finished? Like, what is it that they want to express? But they want to express that it's like in this year, 2026, the divine feminine is the awakening of the divine feminine in 2026. So, and that got confirmed again in a session recently. Yeah. So just releasing a bit, connecting. And then basically the light worker's main job is to not dissociate, not to vacate their bodies. It's to stay embodied. Ask questions, stay embodied, and use discernment. And that is the trickiest thing for light workers is discernment, because we think everyone is like us. I thought everybody was an empath. I didn't know about, I knew I knew there were different beings because I could see them, but I didn't understand. I could see who was a reptilian, who's a Draco reptilian. I could see grays. I could see because they look different, but I didn't judge it. I didn't judge them. I just thought they were a different, like a variety, but I didn't understand the destruction until the last 2 years and really since 2024. But the last 2 years, I didn't until I really saw how the the mechanism, the inversion mechanism of 4D is so intense. And it's so intense so that you do not embody in 5D. Because as soon as you embody in 5D, game over. They have no access to you, and you awaken 750 souls yourself just by that one thing. So, and that's why they distract us. And, it's like trying to convince us that we're lone, most empaths, they're almost like lone wolves, to convince us there's no divine counterpart. There's no divine counterpart inside of us. They try to convince us that we're not all interconnected. But 5D, that is the frequency. There's no hierarchy. Children are protected. They are they have an inherent like protection. The community protects them. In 3D, it's disgusting. It's horrific what happens to children. And even if nothing happens to them, even the way the school system is set up, it's horrific. So there's just so many levels. It's gross. It's disgusting, and it's maxed out on its disgusting 3D material plane has kind of maxed out in its disgusting behavior, and it's basically getting shut down, not just for us as light workers, but also Gaia is shutting it down. Mother Earth is also enough, So, God source divine presence is already saying enough, so it's it's going to shift very much in the next 2 years. So I learned in February 2026 that basically just it would be all kind of shut down now because it's so gross, but for grace, for our bodies to acclimatize, we're kind of getting a grace period of 2 years. So the faster we kind of clear our system of interference, the more comfortable we'll be basically. But we need to kind of heal the body and kind of discard everything that is not source consciousness and heal everything basically. And we can do it, and we absolutely can do it. We can do it now. It's not later. We can do it now. So, all right, fiery transmission there. Okay. All right, let's look at the chat. Thank you for being here. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so Helen has a question. Helen has a question. Okay, and then Sanija's also here. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Sanija and Helen. Okay, so let's start with well, thanks. Sanija left a message in the chat. She said, both Helen and Sanija have questions, and I will answer both, or we'll look into it. We'll talk to her ourselves. But Sanija said, I look beautiful. I'm glowing. Well, that's good because this transmission came through like a fire. It's like when the children, anything to do with the children, when it comes through the children, and the inversion, it's like, just know God source divine presence is absolutely disgusted what happens to light beings and light workers, like absolutely disgusted. And it is not, in no way is it okay. They're never like, well, they're learning. No, you cannot cross consent. And if you want to really throw off the dark triad, say no to them. I said to this one guy recently, I don't have a personal relationship with him. He's just a guy who's a salesman. And I just said, look, it's just simple. Is it a yes or a no? And an empath, a light worker, would be able to answer in a flash. In a flash. Yes or no, of course. Yes or no. They would say yes or no. No problem. And if they said no, they'd say, well, it's a no, but I would love it for it to be a yes, but it's a no, right? Because I would answer that way. But you ask that question to the dark triad and they hate your guts. Like he instantly was dark. You know what? I knew he was a reptilian, and then but he went dark. Like they get angry, like pissed off, like, how dare you? It's like, how dare I what? Ask a direct question? How dare I ask a yes or a no? Because I don't want to waste my time. Is it a yes or a no? If it's a no, I got to move on. But they don't want you to move on because they need you to be entangled for as long as possible. I remember one time saying to a reptilian, and I just said, you don't have my consent. And he was like, take it back. And I said, no, you do not have my consent. And it just flew. I didn't even know I could speak that way. It just flew out of my mouth, flew out. And he, right away, though, he reacted, take it back. Who talks like that? Like if somebody said to me, you do not have my consent, I would say, I'm so sorry, of course, and back off, like immediately. But not the dark triad. The dark triad, you will enrage them. Always make yourself, I didn't feel scared of this person, but always make sure that you're safe. Like don't confront them if you feel, especially if what you're dealing with is a Draco reptilian and you don't have a way of being safe. You have to be very strategic around them because they're very tricky and they're very aggressive. They're the most aggressive. Well, and the grays are aggressive too, because the grays are constantly trying to, outsource your DNA and your organs and your cells. They're so desperate, right? They have done so much with their genetics that they're basically going to expire because they chose technology and they basically went so far that they're going to be extinct, and that's why they're kind of do things that are so aggressive. But you can just say, if you ever are in any situation where you don't understand what's happening to you, you can just say, you do not have my consent. They cannot cross that. And it really, like the guy, like they said, like, take it back. And I was like, no, you do not have my consent. And it was like a fire was inside of me. And in that dysfunctional situation, it just basically within 24 hours just totally fell apart because it was like the needle. I hit the needle, like it was like a needle in a haystack, but I hit it. I found it. I found the key to freedom, basically, the key to consciousness. And that's why they do a lot with inferred consent. So they try, we're constantly like, how many updates do we get on Apple? Like every week, there's a new update, a new, I have to restart and you have to put in this new software. And you're constantly signing terms and conditions. Like, I'm not a lawyer. Like, do I look at the terms and conditions? But I just stopped doing any of it. I'm just curious what will happen to my phone, but actually I haven't done an update in like a year. And it keeps like sending me messages like update, because I'm just curious, like what would happen if I don't? Like, I don't know. I'm not a tech person, but I don't feel like signing something. I don't know what I'm signing. And so I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens if I don't sign. I'm just curious. But I mean, don't follow what I'm doing because, I don't really care about technology. So, But here we are, we're using technology, we're using Zoom. Okay, so where am I at? Okay, so lots to say. Yeah, very fiery today. Okay, so thank you for being here. Hi. Okay, and then also in the chat, Maggie has joined and she is new. Okay, hi Maggie. So how it works is I just need a first name and your year of birth and your pronoun like she, he, or they, and then a question that is kind of on your mind, or you can make a comment or just, chat, chat on the chat, write anything in the chat. Okay, so we're going to start though with, Maggie says hi. Yeah, so hi and welcome. So, okay, so let's start with Helen's question. So Helen, 1982, she, could I get help with meditating? And thank you so much. Okay, so let's take a look at what happens when Helen meditates. Okay, so let's look. Okay, so they're saying it's an alignment. So they're just gonna work with your alignment right now. So straight posture. So we need a straight posture. I was one of my friends, I was like, she wanted me to do kind of like an induction, to kind of prepare for a journey. And so she was like, okay, yeah, you say it. And then I was like, okay, you gotta sit up, like posture. I think I've said this story before. And then she was just like lying down. She's like, no, and I said, okay, but you still have to sit up. And then she was just like, yeah, but she said no because she didn't want me bossing her, but anyways, I'm not bossing you, Helen, but they're just saying straight posture. So straight posture and then eyes open. So try when you're meditating now, meditate with your eyes open. So when I meditated with Eckhart for 3 years, one-on-one, 1997 to 2000, all the meditation that we did was open-eyed. So he sat in a chair across and I sat in a chair and we meditated eyes to eyes. And I would meditate and then the whole room would disappear except for his eyes. So when you meditate, you can meditate. You see how I have a candle in the background? You can meditate by gazing at the candle or gaze at like a photograph of, like a guide or someone that like if your heart, if you feel so connected like to Buddha or Yeshua or Miriam or Archangel Michael or any guide of unconditional love that you have an affinity for, like you could look at a picture of them and do like that eye gazing meditation with that image. Or it could be an image of nature, or it could be a flower, like fresh flowers, or a plant. You could do the eye gazing with a plant or with a flower. And actually, Eckhart always said, they said it will take you. So right away, so nature confirms. So there's a bird that landed at the very tip of this very tall tree. And they're saying that's basically your eye line. Your eye line is like a top of the tree to, another top of the tree eye line. And so you can, like Eckhart said, actually, Eckhart told, so if you had anything, he said, if you had nothing in your home except for flowers, then you would have everything. Because people stop because I was like, but no, but Eckhart, they die, like fresh flowers don't last very long, where a plant will last a long time. And he said, no, because the flowers came on earth and blossomed on earth to blossom consciousness. So beauty for beauty's sake, right? And the scent of the flowers. So the other morning, a few mornings ago, I can't remember, I woke up with a beautiful smell. of lilies. And for me, when I smell, that is Miriam, Mother Mary. And I felt this overwhelm of love. And then I just received it, and I acknowledged. So to me, when Mother Mary, Miriam comes from the crucifixion timeline, when she comes through in scent. Yeah. So they're saying that actually now for you, their suggestion is to do open-eyed meditation. So they call it eye gazing. So basically imagine, source to source meditating. So eyes open, good posture, right? Be comfortable, but good posture. And then try that. They're saying it will work. They're like, it's a very fiery transmission today. I don't know how I like it doesn't feel like, it's like try it. It's more it's coming through very fiery today. So and nature is here. Gaia is here. The divine feminine is here. Like I had uh a new presence, of Mother Earth, of Gaia, called Meter Ton Pantone. And it's the mother of all has come forward, and so it's like it's the rise of the divine feminine, but we need to keep our eyes open, posture relaxed, and then just be very, if you don't know the answer to something, check in, tune in first. And I always say, inferred consent is not consent. If I don't know when I'm consenting, like I found out, okay, so they're saying like an example is when you get married, you sign this contract, but you think you're just signing the contract with the person you're marrying, but you're also signing a contract with the government. Because then the government can get involved with your children. The government can get involved with the division of property if it comes to it. And so you think, like we think, I thought when you get married, it's between two people, but it's not. There is this inferred, and it's not, you're not told, okay, you're getting married to so and so, and you're also getting married to the government. I'm getting 100%. Thank you. So there's so much inferred consent in 3D. There is so much manipulation. There's so much coercion. There's so much secrecy, but they have to disclose everything. So everything that they've done, they have to disclose it. And those like, it's going to be shocking because all of those disclosures are really going to shock people. Like if you haven't been asking a lot of questions, like I think of Eckhart, he awakened in an instant when he was 29. So that was probably like 1977. I can't imagine how that felt for his body, because you have to detox all of the 3D out of your body. It would have been, I mean, it sounds amazing because, it happened so fast for him, but it's very intense on the body. Like I'm like it's very, it is like, like self-care is really important, going in the water, the ocean or lake or river, um, if it's safe and good, Epsom salts, to help draw out. It's kind of like it's like tech or it's like metal. It's like these shards, that they interfere. Our bodies are like supposed to be round and soft, and that's why, you can really see now the reptilians and Draco reptilians, the dark triad, the psychopath, sociopath, narcissist, they're getting more angular. They're getting skinnier and very, very skinny and very, very angular, but we're meant to be roundish. Like our bodies, our bones are kind of rounded. Like, we have like a very beautiful design, like a rounded kind of design. So but we're going to start seeing more and more people looking emaciated, especially the famous and the billionaires, and their looks are changing dramatically. Yeah. But that's because the consciousness is shifting with not just with us, like people, like light workers, but also with Gaia, so they're being forced. I mean, we're being forced in a way into consciousness because 3D is shifting. 3D Earth is shifting with or without us. So, okay. Thanks, Helen. I'm going to send you some hearts. But they're basically saying, try open eye meditation and see if I only do that now. I only do open-eyed meditation, and I'll do it with a candle, or like a photograph or a picture, an image, that's something that feels really good, with flowers. But now I'm so comfortable doing open-eyed meditating that they're just releasing for you. So just give it a minute. Just releasing. Just releasing. And yeah, and releasing. Okay, and then alignment. So they said they've aligned you so that you're centered. And then, whew. Yeah, they just said, like, even if you feel tired, but if you do the posture, kind of like the energy of source is going to like awaken, it'll bring in the energy, you will receive the energy from source consciousness, divine presence, God. Yeah. How does that feel, Helen? Let's see. I haven't looked at the chat yet. Let's see. Okay. Helen says, thank you. Okay. All right. So does that make sense? Does that feel doable? I feel like it's doable for you, Helen. You're a master. And remember, we're only remembering. We know how to do these. We've done this in other time spaces. So it is only a remembering. It is a remembering. And the reason why meditation has been taught to close our eyes and put our palms up is so that we basically open our energy up. And then if we dissociate or go out, then something else comes in, right? Like an installation cannot come in if we are embodied. So if we are fully claimed and present in our body, connected through our hearts to source consciousness, nothing can come in. So, and all the work that I do now, I just only open-eyed. So there's no time. There's no time for closed, there's no time. They're like, there's no time for like vacating basically. And if you do vacate, it's okay because you just ask for help and then they'll come help. So always ask, your higher self and your guides of unconditional love, just come and help me. And then they will. There's no mistakes, and they are eternally patient, not like 3D where there's this constant agitation and constant impatience and conscious conscious critical voice, like that critical voice is going all the time. 5D is not like that, and obviously the dimensions higher than 4D are absolutely not like that. So, all right. So Helen says, thank you. Good. Yes. Got it. Okay. Beautiful. All right. I'm going to send you some more hearts. Thank you, Helen. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. Let's go to Sinija. Okay. So Sinija says, good morning, everyone. Thank you. And Helen says a heart. And then Sinija says, can we cut the cords with the other parent of our children and reclaim our relationship with our children? I feel I'm bound forever with the triad. Yes, absolutely. Because you are connected with your children. We're responsible for our children. And actually, sometimes our children will come in different timelines with us as well. So, the dark triad, remember, they're like an empty entity. And so absolutely you can cut cords because they're energetic cords. and they're siphoning, you're not siphoning their energy. Like if they're the dark triad, the psychopath, sociopath, narcissist, they are not emanated from source. So there's nothing to siphon because they're empty. They're gray. They're like, hello, there's nothing in there. So that's why they need you. So that's why they would be siphoning your energy. And when you cut them off, you're not causing harm. You're just reclaiming your own energy. And you're just cutting off you're just basically cutting off they want to siphon, even if they're married to you or divorced or separated or whatever, they want you to not cut those energetic cords because they want to continually siphon. And they'll be like, well, you have to continually let me siphon because we have children together. No, nobody. And an empath, and remember, like a light worker, an empath would never siphon your energy because we know how precious energy is and we don't need it because we can just be in our own space and we get our energy from source. So they are empty. They are literally empty. And so you would do yourself an incredible service by cutting those energetic cords. Remember, they do not cause harm. It's energy work. All you're saying is my energy is mine. And if somebody is draining you energetically, you will get sick. You will get depleted. And that because that's how it works. So your energy is supposed to go source through your heart, connected to the pillar of source consciousness, and then back to source. So, and any cords you cut, the energy goes back to source, and then source transmutes it and does the transfer. So, they don't want source consciousness mirroring back, because as soon as source consciousness mirrors back, that's a lot of light. And then they see who they are. They don't like that. They like moving in the dark. They like being a mystery. That's why they do so much lying, cheating, and stealing, because they have to have multiple sources of basically attachments where they're draining energy. So yeah, absolutely. So, the other parent, if they're a dark triad, I mean, they had children with you because they can't, like two reptilians cannot have children. They need you, but you don't need them. So yeah, cut the cords, free yourself energetically. And it also will help the children because it's very confusing. The interference is very confusing for the children. And so the more they see your energy clear, it actually will make them feel better. Even if they don't know what, you don't have to explain it to them, you don't have to tell children, you don't have to explain unless they're asking. But ask, if they are asking, then ask them more about what they're actually asking, because what I'll hear is that they'll just say, oh, you look a lot better. Or, oh, Mom, you look a lot better. Or, oh, you feel good, but you don't have to go in the whole, the whole explanation to them unless they really want that explanation. But yeah. Okay, so then does that feel like that? So you are not bound forever to the triad, Sinija. So no, no, cut the energetic cords, and the decree will do that. And if they still feel so invasive, then sometimes you have to do a decree, but if you do another decree, write more of like, where are the hooks? Like, are they coming into your dreams, or are they using the children, or are they manipulating through the children? And then name that in your decree, and then do another decree. And then if you feel like you've done your decrees and then they're still interfering, then just state, my decree stands. Source, I release this to source, like my decree stands, and then hold firm, and then see how that feels. But remember, no one is supposed to be attached or siphoning your energy. And no one is supposed to have influence over you. And no one is supposed to be frightening you. Like you shouldn't be frightened about anybody. So, yeah. All right. So how does that feel, Sinija? I'll just keep looking at the chat here. Um, Yeah, so really good question, Sunija, because that is really important. Because I mean, it really is a nightmare when you have children with the dark triad. It really is a nightmare. But you can get through it. And also too, like with the decree, it doesn't create conflict. Because you're not like fighting with them legally. You're not like fighting with them on the phone or by email. You're just taking care of your own energy and letting go. To source, to God, to the divine. Help me with this. I release this to you, source. Like, help me. Help me, help my nervous system so that I'm not like shaking when they email or when they call or when they do something with the children. Help me stay calm. Help me, eject them. You want them ejected out of your system. And the decree does that. And thank you for your support, Sunija. Thank you so much. I hope that helps, and just let me know how that feels. Okay, so Maggie, you're new here. Okay. Mine is Metatron. Okay. Oh, what do you mean, Helen? Can you explain? Because that is Metatron is we have to look into that. Um, there's Metatron's cube, which is not consciousness, source consciousness. That's the dark triad. That's the material 3D trap. So can you say more about what you mean by that? What do you mean by Metatron? Okay, because that I can ask your higher self, but for me, I would stay away from Metatron. Metatron is like we're just finding out about the cube, the eight, the infinity, the relooping, um, the harvesting of energy with the cube, Metatron's cube. So I would I would not have Metatron as a guide, and I would not meditate to Metatron. Yeah. The cube is a no. It's a harvesting tool. It's false. We're supposed to spiral in consciousness, and the cube keeps us looping, redoing karma, like looping. So yeah. Yeah, I feel like the Metatron's cube is a trick. It's a 3D trick. It's not consciousness, not source consciousness. So I don't know if that's what you meant, but that's what popped in just now. So Sinija says when she meditates, she stares at a point on the wall. Oh yeah, that's excellent. I didn't even think of that, but that's so handy because of course you could be in like an office and you could just stare at a point in the wall and nobody would know what you're doing, you know? So that's great, Sinija. Great suggestion. Okay, so I'm just gonna move down along the chat here. Sunija says, I've been having scary dreams. In one, I witnessed a bloody murder at school. The killer saw I knew and was after me. I lost my glasses and was scared he'll get to me. Yeah. And then the more conscious you become, the more you clear out your energy with the decree, then that's what happens. They kind of amplify the fear, they amplify the through your dreams, because of course, you're vulnerable, right? So your eyes are closed and because your body needs to rest. But we didn't need actually to sleep. We just needed to rest our bodies for a little bit. And the best thing to do when something scares you is just, I know for Sinija it's God, but just call in God, source, consciousness, protect me now. And then just basically say, like, you are not true. Like, you are not true. Or I do not consent. Because you are shaken up, but write your dreams down, like, because you're remembering them, so write them down and then just say, I do not consent, and then see how that goes. Okay. And actually, I know it's scary, but Sinija, it's actually like a sign of consciousness because they do ramp everything up. The more conscious you become, you think it will get easier. It will once you're completely 100% 5D embodied, which you will be, because you're awakening your consciousness, and you're asking all of these questions. So yeah, just write them down. And then the big thing is, you do not have my consent, and then call in, God, source, divine presence. I actually say all three: God, source, divine presence. Or I'll say, like, the eternal living light of God, source, mirroring source, and then divine presence, the divine. Okay. And then of only unconditional love, because we have to be very careful nowadays. We have to be very careful. Like, either you are service to source consciousness or service to self. And 3D is service to self. 4D is service to self. They are not in service. They're not here to help you awaken. They're not here in service. They're here for themselves. And that's it. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, so see if that makes sense, Sinija, and let me know, as always. Okay, so Margarita, okay, Maria Margarita, Maggie, okay, wait, so thank you. So some hearts came through. Is that from Sinija? Maybe I should go further down in the okay, so let's go. I'm not sure if I should go further down in the chat to see Sinija's. Okay, so actually I'm gonna do Sinija's reflections from the chat before going to Maggie. So let's look at, Sinija said, thank you. I thought because we have children together, we're bound forever. Yeah, that's what they want you to believe, so that they can siphon your energy forever in all time spaces. And the decree says, no, no, my energy is mine and your energy is yours. And what you do with your energy is none of my business, but my energy remains with me. You need your energy. Like, to be healthy and to be well, we need our energy, and we need to not be leaking our energy. So, and just because you have children or were married with them or had partners and you had like a government contract, now we know there's also this, like, lots behind the scenes of marriages with actually that you're going into a contract with the government as well. So no, no, I don't have a contract with the government, but I know I have a birth certificate. So that we're also realizing that that is another contract. So like we're described as the parent of our children, not the father and the mother, with the birth certificate. So they're very tricky, right? But it's all these silly games, you can just think of it that way. They're all unraveling all these silly games, but just keep releasing what does not belong to you, and then see how that goes. And then with the dreams, be very, very firm, like, are you from source? And I reject it. I release this dream to source. Like they definitely do not want you releasing and claiming things to source. Like they don't want us claiming our technology to source. They do not want us releasing things to source. It's a lot of light. And they don't like the light. They like moving in the darkness, literally in the pitch black. Okay, so and I feel for you, Sunija. There's nothing worse when they're interfering with your children. It can be very powerless, but you can become energetically empowered. And then as soon as your nervous system calms down, by removing interference that is not yours, then you're going to be able to be stable. And then you're like a quick magnet with your children. So, okay, so then, yeah, so I think I said this one that Sinija's comment is, it feels great to know that I'm not bound in spite of having children together. Yeah, absolutely. And then, okay, and Sinija's saying she sent the hearts. Okay, awesome. I'm going to just send them back. And then, oh yeah, the straw man, exactly. Yeah. And then maritime law. Yeah, see, yeah, Sunija, all of that. This is exactly what we're talking about. And okay, so let's actually let's circle back because let's see. Okay, so it's Helen. So Helen was asking about Metatron. So okay, I was studying Archangel Metatron. Is Metatron's cube in Mecca where Muslim people walk around? Yeah, those are cubes. The cubes are to harvest energy and to keep recycling. This is not a comment about Muslims. This is not religion. This is not religious talk. This is not a judgment. This is energy. Okay, so just be crystal clear, like this is energy work. And for me, it's seeing, like how we've been talking about Bashar and a couple other lives. And, Bashar does this with his hands all the time when he talks, right? That's the Freemason symbol. So watch what people they do with their hands. The cube is there as harvesting. The pyramid of white light, Dolores Cannon does that. That is for harvesting. It's like creates like a cube for harvesting energy. They need a lot of energy. They need 80% of our energy and 80% of our money. So, and they need you to freely give it, So when you start saying no and you don't have my consent, it creates an alarm because you potentially have the ability to affect 750,000 other light workers. So, but anything that is a cube is for harvesting. Yeah. And they just said, you think of energy as it's supposed to spiral slowly, spiral, like with ease and grace, nothing manic, right? And not looping and not contained, right? A cube holds energy, right? It's like It's like a siphoning and it's like there to hold, like harvest and hold energy. So Helen says you don't believe in that archangel. Yeah, I know. I studied in 2022 Kyle Gray, and I don't at all anymore. And anybody can. I'm not saying anything about him. I'm just saying because I don't. It's not clean. Like it's not. It no, I don't. Not um not all archangels are source in service to source. Like many of the fallen have come from high frequency. And that's why they're so amazing with tech and they're super psychic. Like if you have a relationship with a narcissist or you have like a psychopathic mother or narcissistic mother or father, they're when you're a kid, you're like, are they like psychic? Do they have a crystal ball? Because they just show up and they're interfering and you're like, how do they even know? Like so they are smart. They did fall from a high consciousness, but they chose service to self because they think they're God. They literally think they're God. And that's why we have to be careful with even using the word God with energy work. And Eckhart Tolle avoids the word and uses divine presence through the heart or the deep I. He calls the higher self the deep I, because if we say higher self, he said people pop out of their bodies. So it's like deep in your heart. And the heart is the hardest to infiltrate. It does get infiltrated, but it's very tricky. But they can interfere with the third eye and the crown, and they love interfering with the crown. They love teaching, like when I first learned mediumship, they're like, open your crown 100%. And I did it, and I was like, oh my God, no way. That is no way. Do not open your crown 100%. Like, whoa, you are getting siphoned. Your energy is getting siphoned. My view of everything is through energy. And energy is what 3D is after. They are after light workers' energy. So, no. So I learned mediumship and I was just like, no, 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 no. And then that's what in my timelines, I've always been a seer. So a seer is always embodied, eyes open, embodied. And then I thought, when I kept my eyes closed, I could see better, but I actually see and sense more with my eyes open. So yeah, I would not open your crown. I would not be in group meditations. I know they do this I've never been, so I don't know Joe Dispenza's work, but they do a lot of palms up. I would never, never, ever, I would never do that. I would never, ever, ever, ever do that. Just, it's like if you go through the heart, you're going through and connecting to the compass, like of the inner body, and the inner body will tell you if something is interfering with your field. And then you have a pillar of consciousness as a light worker. You're a source emanated being, and you have an internal light body, that's source consciousness. And so why connect with anything else when you can just connect to source consciousness within the body? It's the most secure, the most safe. And then if you say unconditional love, if you say unconditional love, like a love with no conditions to the dark triad, they'll go berserk. Because their love is only conditional. Like, if I give you this, you have to give me all of this forever, and that's why, as soon as a light worker has a session and they tell me, they signed a contract, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what contract? Like, Source doesn't sign contracts. So Helen says, I don't believe in the archangel. I would test it and just be like, you have to be only of unconditional love, and that's it. And just draw a line in the sand and just be like, are you of unconditional love? And it should be a yes. And if it isn't a fast yes, then I would question it. I would cut them loose. To me, it's like you don't need anybody except for your higher self of unconditional love and your own source consciousness. So, okay, so let me just see. Oh, wow. All right. So 12:22. Okay, so we're flying by here. Okay, so Helen's saying, okay, so can we ask Helen's higher self about Archangel Metatron? So Helen 1982. So we're gonna ask, is Metatron a guide? Instantly, I got a yuck in the solar plexus, which is the power center. So the energy that is getting siphoned is in your power center. So your solar plexus. So I would not. It's a yuck. It's a no. It's yuck. And just cut them loose or them loose. Metatron's cube, and then see how you feel. See how your energy feels. But instantly, what your higher self is saying, the siphoning is your solar plexus, your power center. And they like to put like a cube on the solar plexus. So there's a constant, suctioning of energy, and then just like recycling, looping, basically. All right. Okay, so how does that help, Helen? Okay, Helen says, okay, just try it, Helen. I mean, it's a good question, right? It's a good question, and a lot of people have been, and I didn't know, because I like Metatron wasn't on my radar, but I know Kyle Gray really is all about Metatron. So I would follow the body, and the body, when we asked your higher self, that's what your higher self just, it was like a convulsion of my third chakra, so the solar plexus where the ribs meet. It was like an instant like that, kind of like a, let's just seal it now and then see how your energy feels. So we're going to remove Metatron, so Archangel Metatron, because if you're not for Helen's highest and greatest good, then you must go now. You do not have consent. Yeah, it folded. So there was a folding. Those words, they cannot cross those words, because the amount of work Metatron would have to cross that, it's too much work. They have to find an easier target, basically. That's kind of how it works. So, but anyways, so let's just check and make sure. So we want to make sure that Helen's solar plexus is free and clear, only source consciousness, only unconditional love. So if Metatron is a guide of no, no, he's not a guide of unconditional love. So he's a guide. There's lots of guides, but there's lots of guides too that convince you to like reincarnate with the same, dark triad, to see if this time they can destroy you. So no, there's lots of guides, but are they source aligned? Are they in service to source? Light workers are here because they're in service to source, because they came to help Earth. They came to help Mother Earth. they came to help with the ascension, their own ascension, and then their own ascension then activates helps then co-creating the ascension for Mother Earth. So, okay. Oh yeah, so Sanija's saying, yeah, no wonder our homes are built in cubes and then people are working in cubes. Yeah, they went from having their own, yeah, exactly. They mirror everything. Everything is obvious because they have to make everything obvious, but they have to create a lot of confusion and drain your energy so you don't have the energy to say no, or are you of unconditional love? But any guide that is of unconditional love, the answer comes fast and they come help fast. Anybody that is not if there's a guide that is not of unconditional love, they kind of sway in, kind of swagger in, kind of slow. They're kind of like, or to me, they look like they're kind of in the shadows, but a real guide of consciousness, of source consciousness, they're lit up. They're like a light bulb. They're like literally a candle, and they come in like in honor, like, yes, I'm in service, like they're in service. So yeah, yeah, it is tricky out there, but it's not tricky. Remember, you're a light worker, so it's all, and it's all learning. Like I studied that and I was looking into Metatron and then all these other different archangels and the cube, and then I was just like, no, like, and then, you know, opening your crown chakra, opening your third eye. Anyways, it's like, yeah, yeah, I stopped all of that. Like, no, because it's for harvesting energy, like that's the game. Like it's not personal. I mean, that sounds brutal, but because it feels so personal, but really, if they can convince you to give your energy freely, that's what they need. And then, for you, the way you're safe is by staying in your body and then eyes open and asking questions. Are you source aligned? Are you in service to source? And are you a guide of unconditional love? And they have to say yes or no. And if they don't say an immediate yes, and you'll feel it in your body. Like I felt Helen's right away in the solar plexus. So it's obvious. And then if it's not obvious, then say no to that guide. If it creates confusion, that's your answer. If it's not a yes, it's a no. Confusion is a no. Like say you ask a narcissist, like this is classic. If you ask a narcissist a question and they're like, I don't know, I don't remember, you just got your answer, right? Because what adult, I don't remember. It's like, okay, liar or whatever, evader, like, but you just got your answer. They're not clear. They are not stepping forward in clarity. And if they're not stepping forward in clarity, then they're not for your highest and greatest good. And then you decide who's in your field. You can have your field be very tight, source or nothing, God, source, divine presence or nothing. It can be like, you don't need other guides. You just need your heart, which is your higher self, which is your soul, which is also the deep I. That's all you need. And that pillar of light of consciousness. And then you just emanate more and more consciousness, the more you remove interference. So that's it. That's all we're doing here in energy work. We're removing interference so that you know who you are. And then when you know who you are and you're stable in your frequency and you're embodied in your frequency, yeah, then you did it. You know, that's it. Like, it's not that tricky, right? They make it seem like it's so tricky, but that is essentially what it comes down to. You know, are you for source or not? Are you in service to self or are you in service to others? And that's it. Um, okay, so does that feel okay, Helen? Does that feel? It's a really good question because it's coming up a lot right now. And Metatron's, the whole cube is coming up a lot, you know, in social media's other seers, you know, they may not call themselves seers, but others seers are also connecting the dots. Um, so you know, we're here to help each other, and then we put it the word, you know, the word out there, and then other people kind of see how does their body feel when they hear that information. Like I get, you know, the like chills on my body, which to me always are a confirmation because you can't make those happen, you know. And then so Sinija said, I've heard Archangel Michael is false light. So yeah, no. Archangel Michael is a cherubim, no, cherub. Um, he is so a lot of the fallen, you know, angels, which you know give angels a bad rap, they came from from Archangel Michael's consciousness. So they came from that. It's a high frequency, it's close to source, you know, and that's why, you know, they are very good at, you know, tech and then 100 years, you know, in advance, they plan things, they're constantly planning ahead. And you know, it's not that they don't have intelligence, they just don't have intelligence with consciousness. You know, they don't have tech for life. They have tech for destruction. You know, they have tech to use it for loosh, you know, to collect people's energy against their you know, their consent, because they don't know, everybody doesn't know what we've been consenting to so much stuff, you know. Like we all need to be lawyers. It's like, you know, once we find out what our birth certificates are, what our marriage certificates are, like what all of the updates and all our iPhones are, you know, through Apple, like, or Microsoft, like, it's like, you know, the banks, like, it's unbelievable. So yeah, Cindy just saying the financial system is always asking for our consent. Right, exactly. Paying by a debit card. They always ask you if you accept the charge amount. Yeah, exactly. It's that their modus operandi, I'm hearing, their modus operandi is inferred consent. That is the inversion. But source consciousness is always upfront, eyes open, consent. Like this is what you're saying. Is that what you want? And then you say yes or no. There's no coercion. You can say no as much as you want. And then, you know, we just wait until you say yes. Okay. So how does that feel? Okay, and then Helen says, okay, and then she just tossed the book I was reading and the stuff putting my rue plant in my room. Yeah, it is tricky. I did it. I mean, I got the program crystal clear in 2022, right? So that's not that long ago. And it is something that is circulating now, but luckily there are a lot of seers that are also speaking out saying, no, the cube is part of the inversion. It's part of the harvesting of energy. It is to keep you looping and trapped. So yeah. Okay, awesome. I'm going to send you some hearts, Helen, because I know it's like it's hard being tricked, right? But we are all tricked. The whole 3D is tricky, you know? but they're not that tricky. Like source always, remember, is ahead. It just doesn't seem that way because the material plane, they control the material plane, and the higher consciousness of source consciousness, they need our consent. So they need us to talk to them to ask for help for the 3D and our 3D bodies. They cannot cross our consent. So that's one of the laws of the material world. But yeah, for me, if you just follow your body feeling too, Helen, like how did your body feel when you received the information about Metatron? So, like, because your body will tell the truth. You should not have a revulsion with your guide. Like, there should be no revulsion. It should feel like a relief. The connection should feel like a relief. Okay, so I feel like I'm gonna loop back to Maggie here. Okay, so all right, so Maria, Maggie, 1962. Okay, what is the best time to meditate and how long should one meditate for? I love flowers and I think meditating would be doable as I do not meditate and would like to start. Okay, so let's take a look at Maggie's energy. So 1962. Yeah, right away they're saying there's an alignment to go to the left. There's like almost like a twist kind of in the back, like to go to the left. So they're saying, let's just notice that. They're just saying like, let's just notice it. And then they're just gently like kind of aligning the back. And they're like, let's just slow down. They're like, let's slow down. There's no rush. So, because sometimes this kind of body response has been there for a while. They want you to be like, a willow tree. Do you know those trees? Some people say they're scary. They're not. They're like a tree and their leaves grow downwards and then they flow in the wind. Getting those goosebumps. They flow in the wind. They want you to be like a flowy dress or like a flowy willow tree. They're saying a willow tree is like a good anchor for you, like a good, yeah, a good example of kind of how they want you to feel so sturdy, like the roots of a willow tree are so deep and they can kind of grow really close to the water. And, and then they just flow down and in the wind, they just blow like they're so easy and they're so graceful. They're so relaxed. And they're very full, like they're like a very full kind of looking tree. So they're kind of like, think of that, think of like the fullness of you, the fullness of you and your energy. And then just being like very like relaxed. And then, but anchored. So the root is anchored, the trunk of the tree is anchored, but everything else is relaxed. And then they're saying, as soon as they started to mention that, they started to see the body going kind of gently on its own, kind of into alignment. So they're just moving everything kind of like a willow tree, just very gently, like, it was almost like there was like it was locked on the left side. So they're like, we're just moving it like a willow tree, just very gently, just smooth and easy. And then a bird came through, a sparrow. They're saying a sparrow. Because sparrows also kind of fly kind of around. So they really want you to be kind of like those are the two examples are saying, like a willow tree or like a sparrow is like a little bird, and they're just like, you know, flowy. So they're just kind of like showing your body like, okay, well, if we introduce this, how is it going to feel? And so right away, then the right shoulder released. So then that's good. That was locked. So the right shoulder is released. And then actually now the rest of the body is kind of following. So, we think, oh, it's the left side, but really it was the right shoulder that was locked. So then that's released. But we introduced it, they're saying we introduced it very gently to Maggie's body, like very gentle. Like the willow tree is very strong and very full, and like if you think it would have like a lot of hair, but it's strong, but it's very flowy. Like, and then a sparrow kind of, when it flies, you see it kind of flies sideways and, like around, but it's like fast, but it's like also can turn on a dime, that kind of thing. So they're just introducing that to the body, to your body, Maggie. They're just introducing and then just seeing, okay, how is that going to feel? Like, how does that feel? So yeah, they said it was actually the lock was in the left shoulder, the right shoulder. So that's released. And then now it's easier to go into center. Good. Yeah, and they're saying, and just feel that and just breathe. Yeah. And they're saying the best time to meditate is all the time. Meaning it's like, think of it as receiving. Meditating is receiving, receiving consciousness, receiving source consciousness. So, they want you to be in the receiving mode all the time. But in terms of like a sit down meditation, you could do, they said that will feel constricting. It's more like they're showing, if you're washing the dishes, then have that connected connect with the bird, the sparrow. They said then you'll be like, just watch how they move. They move around, but they look like they're almost like flying sideways, and they're, yeah, like you can use the sparrow and the willow tree as like an anchor point, almost like they could be guides for you right now, because it's like a way of being. And then in terms of like a sit down meditation, you can do like a few minutes, they said, but whenever you want, maybe more like around town, they're saying, meaning like kind of any time or day, but just kind of notice those pockets, get reminded of the willow tree. The willow tree is an example of your essence. And then seeing the bird also as an anchoring. And then just we're doing some releases for Maggie. Just releasing. Good. And what is the best time to meditate and how long? Okay, so that, and then Maggie said, I love flowers and I think meditating should be doable as I do not meditate and would love to start. Yeah, and you can start, you know, you could even look at like a willow tree. I don't know if you have any willow trees around you, um, but you're gonna feel very at home with willow trees. They kind of show the flow of life being strong and then flowing, rooted, yet, with ease and grace, with flow. So, okay. I hope that helps for Maria. So we ask for benevolent healing for all, right? And that any changes come in with ease and grace. Okay, I'm just going to look at the chat, see how that went. How does that feel, Maggie? Oh, and then Maggie had another question. Could you please repeat regarding Daryl and Bashar? Is Bashar service to self or service to source? Yeah, so Bashar is from 4D, and they are a collective of the grays, and they are in service to self, and they are almost going to self-destruct because they chose technology over source consciousness. A little bird just flew right in front of the window, like right in front of, and was like flying literally right in front of the window. So yeah, it's it did come up in other, you can watch actually if you choose other lives, and you'll see Sunija and I actually talked a lot about it. But the big thing, they have to do a big tell, right, of who they're in service to. And Bashar does this with his hands all the time, which is the Freemason symbol, this like, it's like a triangle. So yeah, but Bashar, who he gets the information from, and that's why he sounds so tech, because they are tech. The grays are like so tech. But it's a lot of what he says also comes through, but not with compassion, and that's also a big tell, right? So and then and then thanks, Sunija. Wow, you're like a genius here. So Maggie, Sunija said for Maggie to watch the video from April 14th, 2026, one of the lives. So we discussed Bashar a lot in April 14th, 2026. I don't know why I look at the computer and I'm looking at it like it's hard to read. It's not. Like, I'm like, but it's because of going into presence, and then it's like, and then doing the practical stuff like reading. It's like, oh, wow. Okay, so how's everybody doing? A lot of information came through today. I'm going to send lots of love. And then Maggie says, okay, thank you very much. Just started to do the decrees, catching up slowly. Awesome, Maggie. Yeah, and always you can ask questions too about the decrees and see how it's going. Just remember the plants, and Helen brought this forward. Thank you for plants is part 4. All the plants except for rosemary are toxic to cats. So be careful. I know people have different kinds of pets nowadays, so just be careful that whatever plants you do have in your home, they're not toxic to children, our dependents, our animals, right, that we take care of. So make sure they're all safe. And thanks, Helen, for putting that forward. Maggie says, thank you so much, and hearts, and I'll send some hearts back. Sunija says, sparrows fly like a playful dance. Yeah, that's a beautiful way of describing. They do a beautiful dance, and the willow is like a beautiful dance where it sways and it moves with ease and grace, like that. Maybe that's Maggie's style, is just moving with ease and grace. So yeah. Maggie says, very appreciative for your kindness and help. There is a willow tree not far from me that always gets my attention, and many sparrows around. Yeah, see, it's always there in your field, right? So Seer work it's already in your field, and then we're just highlighting what's already in your field. That's amazing confirmation. Thanks, Maggie. Yeah, of course they're around you all the time. Yeah. Yeah, wonderful. And so Maggie says she feels wonderful. Yeah, so the alignment now, the lock, your right shoulder was locked, so now that's free, so the flow will come to you. Sending lots of hearts. And then Maggie said, very true, when we hear Bashar, sense a lack of compassion. And that is the big tell. Like besides the hand signals and the this and the, I don't know, the other one, this, like besides all of those hand signals that they have to tell us who they're in, who they're idolizing. The big thing is, to me, when guides of unconditional come through, they are so patient with so much unconditional love and refinement. Like, they really want to help my last sense that opened was smelling, so to me it's amazing when I wake up and I can smell flowers have like wafted in, you know because it's like helping confirm that awakened, they call them clairs, so like clairsentience is like feeling, clairvoyance is clear seeing, clairgustance is taste. So it's like that's what 3D shuts down. They shut down our clairs. And then as we become conscious, as we awaken to who we truly are, our clairs come back. Our refinement comes back. Our, like source is like so creative and gorgeous. Like earth is gorgeous. Like the plants, the trees, the lakes, the rivers, the mountains, the hills, the different animals, like so creative and beautiful, like flowers. So yeah, more just think of like, to me, when teachers are harsh, that is a red flag. Way, 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 because 5D is there's no hierarchy. So why are they being so harsh? Like that, to me, that says a lot, actually. And why do they need to be above you? Why do they need to dominate? So, yeah, this has been really, really good, lively, um, lively YouTube live. So hopefully all of this is helpful. And then Maggie says, yes, Earth is beautiful, always in awe of the beauty of nature. Yeah, exactly. And then just even just having that's an awakening, right? That's consciousness. So it's beautiful. But that's the big thing. The big thing is, with source, with Gaia, new earth, 5D, 6, 7, 8, 9D, it's a co-creation. There is no hierarchy. So, and that's great, Maggie, that you're starting to work through the decrees and then just try, do them in order. It does help the nervous system and the body acclimatize. And even if one of the decrees seems not relevant, usually there's something about it, because we can find something in all of the decrees, and it's just there to kind of clear out the muck, meaning it's there to clear out what is not for your highest and greatest good. And really our energy is meant to be our own energy, and we don't cause harm by people not siphoning our energy. That is 3D lie, basically. 3D, the material plane, is all about siphoning, lying, cheating, and stealing. So, but I hear all the time in sessions that no one gets away with anything. And so, all right, so let's The next decree that's coming out, so part 11, the X relationship decree came out on the 16th of May, 2026. And Sunija her question touched on that. You know, what if you have a co-parent that is part of the dark triad? What do you do? And then part 12 is coming out on the 23rd of May, 2026. And it is a very powerful manifesting. And I'm so curious for all of you to do it and to give feedback and to see how it goes for you. And so that will be out on, it'll be out on Saturday, the 23rd of May, 2026. So that will be part 12. And I've gotten a request from Sinija and from Helen to do a decree on fear. And so that is coming together, but I haven't, I have to kind of receive it and then I write it and then I video, then I make a video. But it's pretty amazing. Once the information, it does come, yeah, it's like a fire. I feel very fiery today, so a lot of energy. So thank you for being here for this live. I never put an end time because I don't, I go by the energy. If I start feeling tired, then I know it's time to wrap it up. But yeah, this session, there was a lot that came through, and thank you for your questions. Thank you for Maggie for joining and putting a question forward and starting to do the decrees. Maggie says she feels so blessed finding this channel. Then 3 hearts. Yeah, thank you, Maggie. And I feel blessed. Thank you. Yeah, because we're here to do this together and then hold our frequency together. It's like they don't want us together. They want us separate, you know, they want us, you know, not talking to each other. They want, you know, that's why, you know, lots of people, it's like their accounts get banned. It's like, you know, what are they, why? You know, unless it's like hate speech, you know, but anyways, it's they don't want us talking to each other, but here we are in this space and the YouTube lives, you know, we get a chance to talk to each other and ask questions. It's a way of connecting. And it's good that it's live because it makes it conscious in the present moment. So the frequency goes live in the moment. So sending lots of love. And so let's end here. So let's close the space now. And we ask for all the questions that were asked. We are asking for benevolent healing. And that's nice. Yeah. So Helen is saying, hello, Maggie, in capital letters. Nice to meet you. I am Helen. Yeah, amazing, right? So it's like, yeah, it's really a beautiful community. It's like, even if I had 0 community, I would still be doing this with 0. Because anytime you go into the space of source consciousness, to me, it's like, I could do that all day, you know, that's like, it's heaven. It's like the best ever. So, but that we're finding each other that is the important thing. And we're holding resonance and we're asking questions, like we're questioning each other. Don't believe anything I say. Check in with the body. Check in with the compass, your body, and see, does it resonate? Does it feel true? You know, how did the body respond? Because as soon as we ask a question, it's like a big light of source goes onto that question. And then we look at it together. And then we see, you know, what's going on, and then how does the body respond? And that was a good question, Helen, because it's coming up a lot, the whole cube and Metatron. So yeah. Yeah, and I personally, and just to go back to Maggie, I love willow trees. I love willow trees. Okay, so and Maggie is saying back to Helen, nice to meet you all, or to all of us, and then thank you again. Yeah, 100%. I'm gonna send some 100% and some little celebration emojis and hearts. Because we're doing this work heart to heart, right? We're connecting source to source consciousness. We're connecting through our hearts. And that in energy work is so clean because you're just ejecting what isn't yours. So there's no harm because it's your energy, and then you're not getting into other people's business, you know? So it's beautiful. So let's close this space. We ask for benevolent healing from source and all energy work to go to source. And then we're grounded 100% back in our bodies, 100% in our bodies, and connected to Gaia, New Earth. And then we're claiming our senses, our seeing, our hearing, our knowing in Source's name. Like our internal experience of our own transmission. We're connecting to the inner body to make sure that our transmission is clean, that the information that we are receiving is clean and clear of unconditional love, only of unconditional love. And then our higher self is fully present of unconditional love. You can even say higher self of unconditional love. Because we have to be very, very crystal clear and very transparent right now, because they're all the sneakiness of the material plane, the 3D material plane. So we just name everything, claim our technology and source's name. So no looping, no distortions, just clear information. And then just aligning, they're just kind of going, they're going to go left to right, they're saying to center in alignment. So they say, it's not just going directly. Sometimes they have to go to the side and then go to the other side and then come back to the middle. But it's always gentle, and it's gentle. It's unconditional love, so there's no fast, there's no, you have to sign this contract now. And the what they're saying too with the sparrow is an amazing example, because the sparrow can pivot on a dime. So you could be like, oh, I'm all about Metatron, and then boom, you learn something, and then you're like, no, I'm not. You can just change on a dime. Like a sparrow, they can just change direction like in an instant. So maybe, we'll see you on Thursday. And if anybody that has been watching too, maybe next time, if you want to put any comments or suggestions or say hi. No pressure though. So in this work though, there's no sneaky snakes. We're checking everything, and we're checking it with the body. So as we end here, always follow your own discernment and leave the rest. That is the most important thing, right? Is we are checking everything. We have to really be super sharp these days. And we have to just be naming, this is what I see, this is what I feel, this is how my body reacted. And then just follow that. That's the most important. And no hierarchy, right? Source consciousness, we are all one source consciousness. We're here to help one another. All right, lots of love. We're going to end here. All right, and we'll see you on Thursday at 7:30 a.m. PST if you can make it. That would be lovely to see you. All right, take care, everyone.